Welcome to the Global Pages channel. Please like and subscribe to contribute to channel's development. Okay, let's get into it. Bill Gates told the co-hosts of The View on Tuesday that he was worried about the Trump administration's steps to scale back USAID and said it could lead to millions of deaths. But is this a legitimate alarm from a seasoned public health advocate or a calculated move to preserve his political and financial interest? Take a listen.
Billionaire philanthropist Bill Gates, a man whose influence stretches all across global health, technology, politics, vaccines, farming, name it, has issued what critics are calling a thinly veiled threat to the Donald Trump administration, Elon Musk too, and indeed the American public. During a recent appearance on The View, Gates warned of, quote, literally millions of deaths if funding for his USAID partnerships is cut, while ominously predicting a future pandemic far more severe than COVID-19. Yeah, he's back again, another pandemic, who would have guessed? But is this a legitimate alarm from a seasoned public health advocate or a calculated move to preserve his own political and financial interests? Let's unpack the details.
You had a 3-hour dinner with him, and that's more FaceTime than, as you say, you had with Joe Biden during his presidency. And by your account, you say that you were impressed with him. What are you able to share about issues you discussed? And since he's only been in office 2 weeks, but do you feel like what you discussed aligned with what you're seeing so far?
Well, my two priorities in talking to President Trump were the global health issues, particularly HIV and polio. The voters have a lot to be proud of. We've saved tens of millions of lives. The number of children who die at the turn of the century is over 10 million a year, now down below 5 million. And things like HIV medicines, malaria bed nets are responsible for that, and vaccines. So I was encouraging him to drive more innovation in those spaces. We're still missing some vaccines, and I felt we had a very good conversation.
Okay. Well, and you, Mr. Gates, you also called Elon Musk's political influence abroad, quote, insane, along with another word we can't repeat here. But what's your take on his political access and influence here in America right now?
Well, Elon, his private sector work, has been very innovative, really fantastic. A lot of private sector people, when they get into government, they don't take the time necessarily to see what the good work is or why it's structured the way it is. So I'm a little worried, particularly with this USAID stuff. My foundation partners with USAID on nutrition and getting vaccines out. And, there's incredible people. They're not actually worms that work there. So, hopefully we'll get some of that work back in shape. In fact, if we don't, you could have literally millions of deaths. So, with aid, people think, wow, how much do we give to these countries? As you said, it's less than 1%. People think it's 5% and it should be 2%, but it's actually under 1%.
Yeah. Wow. And still saving lives. I was reading, though, that you said the next pandemic you are predicting within maybe 25 years. Is that
certainly
accurate?
we'll have one in the next 25 years. There's even some pathogens out there that we're watching over right now. So maybe 10% chance in the next 4 years.
Gates didn't mince words about the consequences of defunding USAID, the US Agency for International Development. He said, my foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, partners with USAID on nutrition and getting vaccines out, he told The View. He said, if we don't restore funding, you could literally have millions of deaths. I think we heard that during the pandemic, didn't we? And at first glance, this sounds like a humanitarian plea from a former man who used to run a computer software company. But context is critical. The Trump administration's Department of Justice has launched investigations into USAID following whistleblower claims of financial mismanagement and corruption. Reports allege taxpayer funds were funneled into projects with minimal oversight, including initiatives tied to Gates' own foundation. Gates' warning then makes sense, doesn't it? Isn't just about saving lives, it's a direct response to the prospect of losing a key revenue stream. All that cash. Since 2000, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has partnered with USAID on projects ranging from vaccine distribution to agricultural development. And Gates, of course, is now the biggest private farmland owner in the United States. Again, I say interesting for a guy who used to run a software company. Anyway, while these efforts have undeniably impacted global health, critics argue the relationship raises ethical questions too. Should a private foundation, led by a billionaire, hold this much sway over a taxpayer-funded agency? And why the resistance to transparency if USAID's work is as vital as Gates claims? This isn't just a theoretical debate. USAID has faced scrutiny for years over its ties to organisations such as the Clinton Foundation and pharmaceutical giants too. If Trump's DOJ uncovers evidence of misconduct, Bill Gates' ability to steer global health policy and access public funds could diminish significantly. Bill Gates reserved particular disdain for Elon Musk, whose role as a Trump advisor has clearly quite rattled him. He said Elon's position in the Trump White House is insane, adding he's a little worried, particularly with the MAGA movement taking down USAID. The tension here is multifaceted. So Elon Musk, a rival billionaire with growing political clout, has publicly criticised what he calls the globalist gatekeeping of institutions like USAID. And he's also targeted Bill Gates himself, not least a couple of years ago, sharing this meme of a pregnant man using an emoji from Microsoft, Bill Gates' old company. He called Bill Gates' belly, his rather unflattering stomach, a quote-unquote boner killer. So Elon is no stranger to taking the mick out of Bill Gates. His vision, Elon's vision, shared by many in Trump's orbit, prioritises deregulation, private sector innovation and America First policies. But Bill Gates, by contrast, champions centralised top-down solutions via partnerships between governments and NGOs. But this clash isn't merely ideological. The Gates Foundation has received over $2 billion from USAID since 2009, funding projects in 140 countries. If Trump's administration curtails USAID's budget or overhauls its structure, Bill Gates' influence and his foundation's financial pipeline could erode. When Gates dismisses Musk's role as insane, he's not just attacking a rival, he's signalling anxiety over a seismic shift in just who controls the levers of global health. Perhaps the most chilling moment came when Gates turned to pandemics. He said, quote, "We will have another pandemic in the next 25 years, maybe a 10% chance in the next 4 years," he said. Well, very kind of him to give us the heads up. How does he know? For many, this evokes very uncomfortable echoes of COVID-19, a crisis that cemented Gates' status as a global health czar, while at the same time funneling billions into vaccine initiatives he supports. But there's a darker subtext here too. Mounting evidence ties USAID and Gates-backed groups to gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Documents reveal USAID-funded EcoHealth Alliance, which collaborated with Wuhan on coronavirus experiments. While mainstream outlets dismiss the lab leak theory, Trump's DOJ has subpoenaed records to determine if USAID misused funds or violated biosafety protocols. Bill Gates, meanwhile, has invested heavily in pandemic readiness. His foundation funds vaccine research, diagnostic tools, and even AI-driven outbreak modelling. Another pandemic, whether natural or accidental, could turbocharge these ventures. So when Gates warns of a looming threat, skeptics ask, quite rightly, is this a genuine prediction or a self-fulfilling prophecy designed to secure funding and power? Because the numbers are telling, aren't they? During COVID-19, Gates Foundation saw its endowment swell to $70 billion, all right for some, while pharmaceutical companies he's invested in, like Pfizer and BioNTech, raked in record profits. Another pandemic could replicate this windfall, but only if public fear justifies massive government contracts. Gates' latest warning ensures that fear is front and centre, but the big question is, are you and I going to be as gullible this time round? Beneath the debate over USAID and pandemics lies a much broader question. Just who should dictate global health policy? Gates operates in a realm of where philanthropy, government and corporate interests intersect. His foundation shapes the World Health Organization guidelines, funds university research and even influences agriculture policies in developing nations. And by the way, why was Bill Gates in Downing Street just weeks before the budget, the biggest private farmland owner in the US, in a budget where it proved devastating to UK farmers. But this model relies on partnerships with agencies like USAID, partnerships which are now under threat. Gates said, "I hope the Trump transition doesn't interrupt our work on global health." I bet you don't. Gates also said, revealing his priority was continuity of the existing system. For Donald Trump and Elon Musk, however, that system epitomizes bloated bureaucracy and unaccountable power. The stakes just couldn't be higher. USAID's budget exceeds $30 billion annually, with much of that allocated to NGOs and private contractors. If Trump dismantles the agency's current structure, it could disrupt everything from vaccine rollout in Africa to disaster relief in Asia. It could also end an era of unchecked influence for figures like Gates. And if you really want to see where some of the USAID taxpayer money has been going, take a look at this astonishing clip from the White House press secretary, where she reveals where all that money is being funneled to.
Because if you look at the waste and abuse that has run through USAID over the past several years, these are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do, to get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government.
So, as we conclude and this story keeps unfolding, two visions of the future are colliding. Bill Gates represents a globalist paradigm where technocrats and billionaires steer policy through public-private partnerships, just think of the World Economic Forum, and Donald Trump and Elon Musk on the other side. They champion a nationalist, entrepreneurial approach that prioritizes sovereignty, innovation, and the nation state. But this isn't just about politics, it's about accountability too. When decisions affecting millions of lives, you and me, our children, our grandchildren, when they're made behind closed doors, democracy suffers. Gates' warning of millions of deaths may be hyperbolic, but it underscores a reality. The fight over USAID isn't just about budgets. It's about who gets to decide how our world is governed. So what do you think? Should unelected billionaires, strange men in dark suits in Davos, should they hold this much sway over global health? Or is it time to dismantle a system that prioritizes power over transparency? Drop your thoughts below and we'll be reading.